And we are back. This is Candace Salima speaking with Jeffrey Denning, who is a security specialist in a number of levels. And Jeff, before we went to the break, I talked to you about how this could affect America, how what is going on between Israel and Iran could ultimately do here in America. So if you could please answer that, and maybe, I know you're going to have to conjecture, but go ahead.
Sure. It's interesting. I think another facet on what Israel's plan is to gain allies. And America has been a long-term ally with Israel for many years and years. And, wherein the United States or other Western countries could step in to say, hey, we're going to help you out, Israel, and what would we supply you with? Military advisory, military, funds or supplies or money, or just having the background to say, hey, if we go to war, will you step in and back us? Now, with the current administration, it's kind of been, and even in the last many years, it's kind of been hit and touch, or whether or not the American people or the America's leaders are really willing to bend over backwards for Israel or not. So it's kind of starting to split hairs really between countrymen to say, well, are we really going to do everything we can to help out Israel like we would, in 1973 when troops were ready to get on the ground, and some of them were in Egypt, and they're like, hey, let's go in and go in and help Israel in any of the battles they're going to be in. I don't know that that's going to be the case. I don't know. I think that there will be a time when the growing dissent against Israel will turn and grow, and that a lot of people in America and America's leaders will start saying, no way, we don't want to have anything to do with this. We're going to back away from it.
And I think that would be a dangerous time. Already there are a huge number of Americans, well, I don't know how huge, who already have turned on Israel. And being a religious woman and having studied the scriptures, I don't like the look of that in many ways and for many reasons. I hope that we will always stand with Israel. I hope that, I was looking at the map yesterday, Jeff, and they are surrounded everywhere, completely surrounded by enemies, and they have a right to defend themselves. And it's come to a point where they can, in my opinion, they can no longer just sit there and do preventative measures. They have to make a decisive move if they are to stop this growing tide of anti-Semitic sentiment that is across the Middle East, which has always been there and has in some nations been brewing below the level, but this so-called Arab Spring has brought it bubbling to the top. And I think Israel is in a very dangerous position right now. Am I wrong?
No, absolutely. I think you're correct. They are in a precarious position. They're all alone, and they need to do what they think and feel is right. But to have allied and strategic partnerships, with America or others, would be to their benefit. Now, America kind of looks at it as a tit for tat or a quid quo pro thing, in that America likes to have Israel as their strategic partnership as well, because of what our main objectives are. So there's benefits for both for the alliance, if you want to call it that, but there's it also could be tricky. And why? Because of politics and the future politics. What happens if Netanyahu or his successors really decide to do things that are just unjust, that we feel are unjust or uncanny? And likewise, what if they feel that America is not doing things that are right or good? And so it's kind of a delicate balance. To have long-term allies everywhere is healthy on one level, and if you want to read a fascinating book, Robert Baer, B-A-E-R, He's a former CIA officer, and he wrote about Sleeping with the Devil, it's called, with America's alliance with Saudi Arabia. And so
which is a scary one and always has been.
Yes, it has. So, as the times change and as years are thrust forward, and then everything changes. And the dynamics and things could change. And so, as Bob Baer says, what, do you really want to be sleeping with the enemy? This could be a bad thing. So, I don't know.
Yes. Well, and of course that makes a lot of sense, Jeff, that we have to, look to the actions of that individual country. And certainly, as we have seen in America, it can turn wrong in an instant. And in that instance, if Israel all of a sudden became really, really bad and doing bad things, then yes, I would expect us to step back and say, okay, you're on your own on this. But so far I haven't seen them do it. So as long as they are seeing to their own security, their own safety of their people, I want us to stand with them.
Sure. It's interesting because in one of the principles of the just war theory, it talks about getting the people behind you, and I can't think of the actual the title right off the bat. But it's the will of the people, I think. And is the will of the people going to be supportive of the administration, whether it's this administration or the people of Israel supporting their administration? If that could occur, then things can change. For instance, I interviewed Bill Dahl, former combat photographer and a Marine over in Vietnam. And when he came back from Vietnam, he's standing in his uniform, and he gets a look from a cute girl across the way. He smiles at her, and she starts walking straight up to him, and he thought, well, this is going to be nice, and she spat in his face.
Oh no!
And so, to me, I'm just overwhelmed at the terrible things that happen. In any war, there's going to be differences, and every war is horrible. Any soldier worth his salt hates war and is anti-war. But what's the will of the people? If you look back from in 1776, when George Washington led a small group of volunteers who were scantily clad. Some of them didn't even have shoes and hardly anything to wear. They took their muskets and they crossed in the middle of the night. They crossed the Delaware River into Trenton, New Jersey, and they captured a garrison there in Trenton, and it changed the tide of the war. And their running password, their password that night was victory or death. I think it was the sentiments of the entire, in a great proportion, the entire land of America to say, it's time that we fight for our freedom. We've got to have freedom. We need to have liberty and to establish and live by a constitution that would bless us and have we, the people, be free forever.
Yeah, the sentiment there, Jeff, is so astounding, and it is, I believe, the sentiment of many in America today that we have come to a crossroads here under Barack Obama, and it's been leading up for a long time, but he brought it to a head, and it's in a situation where I don't want armed conflict in America. In fact, I actively speak against it. But I look to what is going on, and I look to the way some of our soldiers are treated when they come home. It's not as bad as during the era of Vietnam, but there are some Americans who have no humanity in them, and they blame the soldier for the actions of the government. And that is what I hope to turn around, is that people can support the soldiers even if they don't support the war. And you're right, any soldier worth his salt is not pro-war. They stand there as the heroes because this is what a hero does. They draw a line in the sand and say, you can't cross this to harm my people. And then they have to be willing to defend that line in the sand, and they do. And as such, they should be treated as heroes and taken care of when they come home. if they are wounded, if whether it's psychological or physical or both, I believe that the American people have a sacred duty to those soldiers to care for them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, it reminds me of the words of a stanza. Trying to think of her name. Anyway, she wrote down, "In the quiet heart is hidden sorrow that the eye can't see." I know people, and I've run across veterans who are missing legs. In fact, one of the guys that we gave a Staff Sergeant John Lindy Award to is a triple amputee. He stepped on an ID or landmine and lost both of his legs and an arm. And John Masson is his name.
Breaks my heart, Jeff. It really breaks my heart.
Well,
yeah, I know.
When you say wounded, it's the wounds that are physical are indeed scarring deep, and then there's a lot of wounds that are not seen as well. And I think that the beauty of America has been that it's changed so wonderfully. So from the sad times of the Vietnam era, where a lot of veterans were treated and horribly and with disdain, now there's so many programs out there to help people and to try to alleviate that pain. It was interesting, talking about John Masson. I had called him up just before Memorial Day. I was asked to be a keynote speaker at quite a large event, and I wanted to recognize John at that time. And I called him up, and he was unfortunately he was having to undergo surgery again from the numerous times in Walter Reed Hospital. And we talked for a while, and I said, John, I just want you to know that I love you, brother, and I think, to me, you're my hero. And he said, well, anybody who wants to go over the war just wants to do the right thing and win and come on home, and so I don't feel I'm anything. And I said, well, to me, you are. And he stopped, and I could hear kind of a choke in his voice, and as maybe a tear or two came to his eye, and he said, thank you so much. He said, that means so much. I was having the hardest day. He said, I was trying to learn how to walk again. Of course, and he said, that means so much. I remember at a couple of political rallies and just sometimes on the street, as I wore my fatigues for a Halloween party here recently, that somebody came up and said, hey, were you in the service? I said, sure was. I said, Iraq was a tough year. And he would come up and he shook my hand and just said, thank you. And that kind of thing, it means so much. So, if you know a veteran or if any of your listeners do, send them a note, shake their hand, tell them thanks. I tell you, it's never, it's not a fun thing, that's for sure. But we do it because, well, it's our responsibility. We do it because we love freedom. We do it because we love the United States of America and the Constitution, and we raised our hands to uphold and sustain the Constitution from all enemies, both foreign and domestic.
Jeff, on that note, I want to thank you. I don't think we can end the interview on any better sentiment than what you just expressed. I thank you so much for all that you're doing and the efforts that you have made on behalf of America and still continue to make. We are very grateful and wish you great peace in your heart and in your mind, and the understanding that there is a grateful nation behind you 100%. Now, the Warrior SOS blog address is warriorsos.blogspot.com, and people can go read the interviews you were talking about. In addition, you are on Facebook, which is Warrior-SOS is the name of the group, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's Warrior SOS, I think. Yeah. Reach out to us, take a look. But I think, everybody individually has their own circle and sphere of influence. And so if you can make a difference in touching the lives of those around you, that's what counts the most. Helping your family and helping your neighbors and being an honorable and good citizen for the United States of America. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I hope you can grab a little bit of lunch. I know I took up your whole lunch hour. I am very sorry.
Oh, hey, this is great. I'm really honored to do it. In fact, I wanted to say just one more thing. Jeff Evans, who was the lead guide for the soldiers in the summit this last year, and it's going to be coming out in a documentary film real soon. They're organizing another one, a second event, where they take wounded warriors, some with PTSD, some who's blind, some who is missing limbs and legs, and summiting a giant mountain. He actually led Eric Weimeyer, who's blind, to the summit of Mount Everest in May of 2001.
Wow. I remember that in the news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jeff Evans, he's a good friend of mine. He just sent me a note just before our interview and asked if I'd help kind of push out notes to anybody who'd be interested in taking a part of that excursion. So he wrote up I interviewed him on Warrior SOS too. You can read a little Q&A there. It's a good interview. But
okay, why don't you email me? Why don't you email me the information he needs to get out, and I'll be sure to bring it up on my show several times. Okay?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. You have a good day.
All right, take care, Candace.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.